Today from the global lane, the United States trained and armed them. Now the Iraqi military is turning its guns against an American ally that helped defeat ISIS. We'll have insights on the battle for Kurdistan. On the home front, American veterans are facing a suicide crisis. But what's being done to save them? And stars are falling and talking in the Hollywood Hills. Should Congress investigate? And it's right here, right now, from the global lane. Now that their joint efforts against ISIS in Iraq are over, Iraqi Shiites and Sunnis have turned their guns on Iraqi Kurds. Iraqi federal troops, along with an Iranian-backed militia, have seized the city of Kirkuk and nearby oil fields from the Kurds. Thousands have fled the area because of the fighting between those forces and Kurdish Peshmerga troops. Joining us with more is Kurdish analyst Awad Mustafa. He's a consultant to government and business leaders in Kurdistan. He's been heavily involved in humanitarian relief in Iraq and Syria. Awad, what can you tell us about the current situation in Iraqi Kurdistan? We understand there was fighting in Kirkuk and the surrounding area. What happened?
The Iraqi government, the Haider Abadi, ordered the Shia militia group, which is heavily backed by Iranian Revolutionary Guard, as well as the Iraqi military. By the way, the Iraqi military now, majority of them are Shia militias. So they entered to Kirkuk. The Kurdish Peshmerga did not want to fight, and then they really clearly said many times in the past, we do not want to have a further bloodshed in Kurdistan, between the Kurd and Arab. However, they took advantage of this, and by also having a silence from international community, particularly in America. So they took control of oil field of Kirkuk. Then further, today and last night, also they went up to Sanjar Mountains, Sununis, and other part of the country were being liberated by Peshmerga. Remember, it's almost 10,000 Peshmerga wounded, 3,000 Peshmerga was killed to defeat ISIS and to drive ISIS from that area. At that time, there was no Iraqi government. The Iraqi government really had bases and have no existence in those areas. So now the entire area is under control of the Iraqi government, and then we are expecting, truly it's another catastrophic humanitarian event which will probably witness in very soon.
Well, already thousands of people have fled their homes for Erbil. And before I ask you to comment on that, let's listen to what some of the evacuees had to say as they left Kirkuk.
The kids were terrified, and we were afraid that there would be crashes and mortars would fall on us. I have kids. We are very sad because we are leaving, but we have been sold out. We've been sold out, my brother. Kirkuk has been sold out.
So what will happen to these displaced Kurds?
Well, so far it's hundreds of thousands of people from Kirkuk have fled because, guys, remember, still the people are 1.9 million people, IDPs and refugees. 300,000 are refugees from Syria, but the rest of it are IDPs from other parts of the country. They are not willing really go back to their home. It's not because lack of medicines, waters, and reconstructions of their home, because the lack of security and the future uncertainty. The people who are now in charge of the Sunni area, Arab Sunni area, they are Shia militias backed by Iranian. In fact, the Qasem Soleimani, he's the most senior member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. He's in charge of the entire operation against the, earlier against ISIS, now against Sunnis, then later Sunnis, now against Kurds. So the people already know what's going to happen to them, because there is an ethnic cleansing, if you like it or not. This is, I hope this is not we come to this stage, but we're going to see it later as we see the international community are not really doing anything about it. So the people already have a witness, already they have experience with the Iraqi government and with the Shia militias in the past. The people of Kirkuk already fled because they know they're going to be persecuted today or tomorrow. The head of the police commander of Kirkuk, which is a Kurdish ethnically Kurd, he tried to respond to one of the reporters in Kurdish. They stopped him. The military and then other high-ranking member of Iraqi government publicly stopped him. They say, you are not allowed to speak Kurdish anymore. This is the Kirkuk, this is Iraqi territory. So imagine if they publicly they stop one of the senior member of their own government to stop to speak Kurdish. What are they going to do to the ordinary people?
And when you talk about ethnic cleansing, that seems like it's reverting back to what it was under Saddam Hussein, when he actually killed many Kurds and forced them out of Kirkuk. Now I want you to listen to what President Trump said about this situation Monday afternoon. Listen to this.
We don't like the fact that they're clashing. We're not taking sides, but we don't like the fact that they're clashing.
The Kurdish
Well, let me tell you, we've had for many years very good relationship with the Kurds, as you know, and we've also been on the side of Iraq. Even though we should have never been in there in the first place, we should never have been there. But we're not taking sides in that battle, John.
So I know many Kurds feel like they were used to defeat ISIS in Iraq and now in Syria. So is the U.S. now walking away from our friends, the Kurds?
We've been friends yesterday, we were friends today, we're going to be friends tomorrow. However, the friendship really, we're not going to last, we're not going to exist. And if the President Trump's not, we're not asking him to take a side. What we're asking him is the weapon that given to the Iraqi government by the American not to use against the Kurds and their own people, to stop Iraqis to use the American weapon against the Kurdish people. That's important that everybody should know. M16 gun is being used against civilian and Peshmergas. Other entire military hardware that the Shia militias backed by Iranian are taking advantage of the Kurdish people because we don't really have a friend. Now, what the Iranian would say is the Kurds are a copy of Zionists and we're not going to let another territories be invaded by Israel. That's not really the case. Kurdistan belongs to the Kurdistani people, not just the Kurdish people, for the people who live in Kurdistan, whether they are Yazidi, Christian, Kaki, Muslim, Arab, or Kurd. You know, we were told many times in the past by the American enemy, not by the American friend, by American enemy, don't trust American. One day they're going to let you down. We never believed, we still don't believe in this. We are hoping very soon the State Department, the White House, the Pentagon, policymakers, senators, congressmen, people, Anglican, Christians, everyone, to understand what's going on. We were a friend yesterday. We fought against ISIS, Islamic extremism. What we have now is we've been rewarded by collective punishment. Airspace is closed. The entire borders is closed. The people are under embargoes. The people has been killed, assassinated. You know, the Iraqi militia group yesterday beheaded Peshmerga. That's what's the difference. So how can we differentiate the Shia group with the ISIS? But what we are saying is the friendship cannot be one way. It has to be both way. And then this is the most crucial, dangerous time of our history. America has to do something about it.
Okay, Awad Mustafa, we thank you for your insights and appreciate you taking the time. We'll see what happens. God bless you.
Thank you, Gary, for having me. God bless you.
Rohingya. You've probably never heard of them, but they're an ethnic people group in Asia desperately in need of help. The United Nations says they're on the run, and now the largest mass migration of a people group in modern history. Since late August, more than 500,000 Rohingya refugees have fled to Bangladesh because of violence in Myanmar. Human rights groups say the Burmese military has committed gang rapes and murders against innocent Rohingya people living in villages in Rakhine State. Now, satellite imagery shows entire villages have been destroyed, and today they're considered the most persecuted people on earth. CBN Humanitarian and Disaster Relief Deputy Director Brian Scott joins us now from Manila, and he just spent time with the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. Brian, what did you witness at the camp you visited?
Gary, utterly, it was simply unimaginable. It was very tragic. There was thousands of people in need of any type of relief, whether it be water, whether it be food. There was just many people were panicked. A lot of people had experienced a lot of stress induced due to conflict, due to the rape, due to the murdering, due to the being on the run. In fact, while we were there was about a boat had capsized, killing about 20+ refugees as they had traveled across the sea. And fear was unbelievable, unimaginable fear was just gripping the people in the camp.
And Brian, what were some of the stories that people told you?
Some of the stories were young women had been raped, young men had been killed, parents had been separated, their children had been separated from parents. There was many women had traveled to the camp, and they had also experienced labor or were giving birth as they were in the midst of fleeing. And it was utter, unbelievable, very gruesome, very horrific scene.
Now, the Burmese army has been known for committing many atrocities over the years, Brian. Years ago, I reported about them destroying villages and churches of Christians, raping and killing Karen and Karenni ethnics. That was in eastern Burma. It sure seems like this is at least ethnic cleansing, if not genocide, against the Rohingya. Now, why the Rohingya?
Well, Gary, permit me just to kind of share briefly. I think there's a religious Cold War going on in this area. The Buddhists are very militantly activated against anything that is not Buddhist. So any other faith, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity, they view them as a threat. Myanmar is a closely closed country that is predominantly Buddhist, and I really believe that this is far more religiously motivated than just ethnic. They would use the term ethnic. There's a lot of similarity with the Rohingya and the Bangladeshi people, as well as Indians. But I would really primarily say that this is more of a faith conflict.
And I know the Rohingya were also allies of the United States in the Second World War, and many of the Burmese actually sided with the Japanese. But what is CBN Humanitarian doing to help them?
CBN's arrival in Bangladesh was to partner with a local Bangladeshi NGO, and we were able to provide relief to women and children, especially infants who had been recently born or had been recently traveled. We witnessed thousands of people in great need, but in the day that we were actually on the ground and visiting, we had lines of women who, with their children, were looking for any type of assistance, any type of sanitary assistance to clean them, to clean the children, and just basic infant formula and water. It was overwhelmingly just graphic and gruesome.
That looks like powdered milk that we're looking at there, or packages of milk.
Yes.
What else needs to be done, Brian, and what can our viewers do to help?
Well, first I would say pray. There are not a lot of Christians in either Myanmar and or Bangladesh, and in order for the gospel to go forward, we have to pray and work with the local believers in either the Rohingya as well as in the Bangladeshis to bring the gospel to these people in great need. I think this is a desperate moment, and as we've seen in conflicts around the world where Satan makes evil happen, the gospel can bear fruit. And I really, truly believe that it is important that the body of Christ pray and then in any way possible seek to partner with organizations that are providing aid into this community.
And we have seen a difference over the years in Myanmar, Burma, as Christians have prayed. It's a lot better than it used to be, but a long way to go. And now on the home front, an alarming statistic, one that's about more than just numbers. It's about people, those who serve their country. One U.S. veteran kills himself every hour of every day in America. That's more than 8,000 per year, and about 2,000 more than have died in the Iraq and Afghan wars combined. One organization is trying to change all that by helping veterans fight their way back to restoration. Mark Martin brings us this story of healing and hope.
Veterans fighting overseas not only suffer physically, but emotionally as well. Hidden battle scars that make life difficult back home. That's where Operation Restored Warrior comes in. To find it, CBN News traveled to the heart of Colorado.
With its wide open spaces and large horse corral, the Four Eagle Ranch resembles something out of the Old West. But take a closer look and you'll see much more. Organizers of Operation Restored Warrior say it's a location where healing takes place.
While the program welcomes all faiths, its core Christian ministry is the 5-day program called the Drop Zone.
A drop zone is a place in enemy territory where you go take that ground. And very often in kind of Christian environments, we refer to things as retreats. I'm going to go to a retreat. And that just didn't sit well with us as professional military men. It's like, well, why are we retreating? How about if we go gain ground? So we specifically call coming to a drop zone a counterattack. And that appeals to warriors.
That counterattack is threefold: rescue, rebuild, and restore.
Warriors come to this place because they're looking for hope. And often the enemy has just beat them down. But this is the place where they know there's some hope. And then when they get here, what they find out is that this is where healing is. And that hope and healing is here because Jesus is here.
The intensive program targets areas of the heart that need healing. ORW leaders hold to the belief psychology reveals Jesus heals, and say it's been proven hundreds of times. For participants like Navy veteran Paul Williams, the program can be a literal lifesaver.
July 2nd of this year, I had written a note and I was ready to go. And it just didn't happen. You know, I went back to my truck to go get the gun and it wasn't there. So I just started praising Jesus with my praise and worship music and said, you know what, I need to give this ORW, Operation Restored Warrior, a really good shot.
And that decision led to victory.
I was able to open up to Paul, the founder of ORW, about all the trash that I've been carrying. And it felt so good to finally just let it out, you know. I can't thank this organization enough. I mean, I came here fighting for my life. And I'm gonna walk away a champion. So, I love them a lot, and I'm super thankful for it.
I was definitely a broken man. Had a lot of depression and anxiety, a lot of anger, a whole lot of anger, and just felt lost. Really, just didn't know where my place was. Didn't know how to find my place either.
Dunbar accepted Christ during the drop zone and decided to get baptized.
The same individual that prayed with me, Jordan, kind of came to me and said, you know, you accepted him yesterday and you verbally accepted him into your life. Would you want to show the action of it? And there was no question at all. I said, absolutely, I'd love to.
Retired Command Sergeant Major Chris Fields is the drop zone lead facilitator. He too once contemplated taking his life and also lost fellow service members to suicide. Fields understands the urgency of going through this program before it's too late.
Don't wait another moment to reach out and to ask for help. I used to think that I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I ate barbed wire in the morning, and you can surmise what I did in the afternoon. But when I reached out for help, I'm stronger than I ever was. And it just takes one moment to say, okay, let me see what this is all about. And then let Jesus take it from there.
Mark Martin joins us with more. Mark, I know you met a number of veterans that tried to commit suicide. What did you learn about their situation? Did they feel like family members just didn't notice the signs, weren't responsive to them, no one cared? What did you find out?
Well, Gary, our veterans have experienced and seen things that it's hard for us to wrap our minds around, the incidents of combat, just the physical, emotional, mental stress that they've endured. Many of us cannot even imagine. So they come back here and they try to assimilate into normal culture. Very difficult for them to do. Their families don't understand what they're going through. Their workplaces don't understand. So these are broken men. Many of them are at the bottom of the barrel, at the end of their rope, are close to committing suicide, have a plan, have an intent to commit suicide. That's when Operation Restored Warrior steps in and is really making changes.
It's really hard to understand PTSD, isn't it, if you haven't been through it and you haven't been through combat. Now, I know this past summer I interviewed Congressman Scott Taylor, former Navy SEAL, and I talked to him about veteran suicide. He said when vets feel suicidal, many don't even consider getting help at VA centers because they just don't feel the VA cares enough about them, and it's better for them to actually be with friends and to talk to someone who's actually been in combat. What difference does that make?
Well, Operation Restored Warrior is living proof of that. You're right, many vets don't want to go to the VA. They're concerned about red tape, about the bureaucracy involved with that. But they come to an organization like Operation Restored Warrior, ORW, and they find other guys that are going through the similar situations that they're going through and dealing with, and that camaraderie gives them confidence. It fuels them to move forward. And then Operation Restored Warrior, although it accepts people of all faiths, the ministry is Christian-oriented, and they look at it this way: psychology reveals, but Jesus heals. They bring Jesus right into the mix of the treatment program there.
How important is a healthy spiritual life to total healing?
A healthy spiritual life is extremely important because it's the anchor, so to speak. You can develop coping skills for your mind, for your emotions. You can exercise to train your body and to increase endorphins and serotonin level. But at the end of the day, where does your heart stand? You need that anchor. And for us as Christians, we put our trust in Jesus, and he provides that stability,
that refuge and that motivation, that impetus to move forward, to fight past.
And how can veterans find out more and other people who may be interested in this?
Sure. OperationRestoredWarrior.org is the website. I'll say it one more time, OperationRestoredWarrior.org. And you can also find information more about it through my story, which is on our website at cbnnews.org.
Mark, thanks so much for doing that story and for being with us today.
Oh, most definitely. I have a heart for veterans, and we all should.
In another blow to critical thinking and free speech on campus, a University of Virginia professor says faculty, not students, have complete discretion over which speakers should be invited on campus. And a Princeton University student newspaper says conservatives don't deserve the right to free speech because if their arguments were strong, they'd meet political opposition. Well, joining us to set it straight today is Hannah Scherlacher. She's program manager and opinion writer for Campus Reform. Hannah, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
So universities wonder why fewer millennials think a college education is necessary, and now this. What's going on?
So when we see schools, when we see professors come out with statements like professors should be the determiners of who gets to speak on campus instead of students, that should be a major red flag. Professors already use their classrooms as bully pulpits to force their ideas onto students, which is why it's so important for students to be able to have free speech and invite whatever speaker they want. Professors have already proven themselves to be untrustworthy arbitrators of what is deemed acceptable for students. I mean, look at how they tried to ban Ben Shapiro or Alan Dershowitz at Berkeley and other schools. These are highly respected intellectuals, and these professors think they're unworthy to come to campus because their ideas don't align with the left. So I'm glad, students are pushing back against this because it's dangerous when we put that much trust in the hands of administration.
Well, they're going to advance their own agenda. And Hannah, it's not shocking, really, when you hear about what Princeton is doing. The editor of their newspaper there was uneasy about an op-ed only because the writer didn't say it's my belief that it's safe to ignore the conservatives because they appeal to a right that doesn't exist. Tell us about that.
It's absolutely absurd. So, these students at Princeton of all schools, this is an Ivy League school where students are supposed to be able to hone their critical thinking skills and draw their own conclusions. And when students write op-eds like this, it's really a reflection of what the university and what professors are feeding them from top down, which is that their eyes and ears need to be shielded from any conservative ideas. And this is detrimental to students because they're going to enter the real world completely unprepared, where they have to socialize, interact, and work with students and other people who don't agree with them.
Tell us about the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. There was a professor there who recently implied that President Trump, not Stephen Paddock, ultimately may have been responsible for that massacre at the Route 91 concert.
It's just disgusting, really. It's horrible. It's just another example of professors, pushing their beliefs on students, and especially during such a horrific tragedy. But it's just a trend of professors saying these inflammatory remarks, and they do it because they get away with it.
And Hannah, although some people do not celebrate Halloween, many college students do. And I understand a student magazine has warned against racist costumes. What's that all about?
Right. So Ohio State University, a student publication, put out a big flow chart to determine whether or not your Halloween costume is racist. And, they have things like, if you're white, you cannot dress up like Prince, or you cannot dress up of anything that has to do with another culture. But none of that's okay, but it's completely okay to make fun of Trump. It says, then you're good. And this is a real flowchart, and it's something we've actually seen at other schools across the nation. At Florida State University last year on Halloween, the school banned Harambe costumes because somehow dressing up like a gorilla is cultural appropriation, according to the school. And then we saw Tufts University threaten police force on anyone who wears offensive police costumes.
Hannah Scherlacher, we're glad you're keeping an eye on what's happening on U.S. college and university campuses. Thank you so much for keeping us informed and setting it straight.
Thanks for having me.
The sex scandal has rocked Hollywood. Allegations of sexual harassment and abuse have been leveled against movie producer Harvey Weinstein. Those charges are being investigated for criminality. But if you think it's limited to Weinstein, you're mistaken. Because 4 years ago, actor Corey Feldman warned about sexual predators and pedophilia in Hollywood. Was anyone listening then? He and the late Corey Haim were some of the victims. Here's what he said on The View and ABC.
I'm saying that there are people that were the people that did this to both me and Corey that are still working, they're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
And they are
And they do not want me saying what I'm saying right now.
Are you saying that they're pedophiles?
Yes. I can tell you that the #1 problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, even to children. So I know what you're thinking. Maybe Washington should have another investigation, right? Asking Congress to investigate the Hollywood sex scandal is like asking the fox to guard the henhouse. Let me remind you of just a few of the sex scandals on Capitol Hill in the past few years. 19 women accused former Senator Bob Packwood of sexual misconduct. He resigned from the Senate in 1995. Former House Financial Services Committee Chairman Barney Frank, remember him? He hired a male prostitute who serviced clients out of Frank's home. Former Senator John Edwards, he fathered a child with Rennell Hunter and then used campaign funds to cover up the affair. Former Congressman Mark Foley resigned after sending sexually explicit text messages to teenage boys. And former Congressman Anthony Weiner was sentenced to 21 months in prison for sexting lewd photos to a minor. And the Hollywood and Washington elite are willing accomplices. Yes, they are. Although some of them know about the unethical, immoral, and criminal acts, it's okay. They'll keep it secret. As long as the money keeps coming and pouring in for those acting in and producing in movies and for those financial political campaigns. Well, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is right at the top of the list of enablers and hypocrites. She says she's an advocate for women's rights. Then why has she accepted money for the Clinton Foundation from Saudi Arabia and other Islamic violators of women? Why won't she return the millions of dollars the foundation received from alleged sexual abuser Harvey Weinstein? Oh, that's right. Her husband, Bill Clinton, had sex with a White House intern and then lied about it. He became only the second president in U.S. history to be impeached. I guess it gets a bit complicated, doesn't it, when it's personal, when there's politics involved, or when large sums of money are involved. Well, folks, we can never expect our nation to advance and be blessed when prominent people in our society in Hollywood and Washington behave immorally or illegally, and when they have no respect or consideration for anyone other than themselves. Some say America gets what it deserves, but I believe we deserve a better country, not a perfect one, but a better one. And we'll only get that when we take a stand for righteousness and fight to clean up the corruption in Hollywood and Washington and in our own hearts. Psalm 33:5 says, "The Lord loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of his unfailing love." So let's pray justice prevails in Hollywood, in Washington, and throughout our land. And let's all strive for righteousness and goodness in our own lives and embrace God's unfailing love. Well, that's it from the Global Lane this week. Until next week, be blessed.